All right, that is an oldie but a goodie theme right there. Yeah, you know, it's a new day. We understand we're going to go back in time here with the Washington Redskins, some of the legends. Joe Jacoby's 40th anniversary when he first came to the league, sitting in studio all the way from Charlotte. We're going to have some fun today. Here's Riggo.
Thank you, Todd. Joe, welcome. Good to see you again. Actually, I thought that was a Hendrix rendition of the Star Spangled Banner.
You know, get the.
I need the words. I need the words, but of course,
a little lighter fluid and
maybe some. I never saw that part of it. I never saw a Jimi Hendrix concert. Did you, Jeff?
No, never
did. Was he dead by the time you were born?
No, not quite.
You remember him?
Oh yeah,
you do.
I remember.
Okay. Yeah, I never. No, I never saw him really. He used to play the guitar with his teeth, didn't he? He did stuff like that.
His tongue, whatever it took, man, whatever it took.
Jimmy got it done.
Depending on if he got the good shit in that day or the good stuff, and
what, he was always lit up for every concert. Why not? Why not?
Different time.
Well, you know what? I had an interesting. By the way, I'm fresh back from. I might peel like a snake. You know, I shed my skin because I got a little too much sun down in San Jose, Mexico, which is basically Cabo. I went down there for a wedding over the weekend. And I hit the dance floor, and the first song I danced to was Pitbull. What's his signature song?
Oh gosh, he has a couple because Fireball.
And Fireball, if that don't get you going, you ain't gonna get going.
Yeah.
One of my favorite songs actually, and to dance to. But guess what, guys? My dancing days are over. After that, and then they played another song, and maybe in the middle of the third song, I was over icing my knees. It was awful.
We're gonna go have some oxygen.
It was awful.
Oxygen.
I learned all about that, and which I always knew. That oxygen that you're taking in does you absolutely no good. I remember I used to sit on the sideline, but the only thing somebody asked me about it, they ran it through ice, so it was cold air. So when on a hot day, although I remember I used to do it during the wintertime too. But that was indoors, I think.
Super smart.
Remember. Yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of patching myself back together. Did a bunch of work yesterday. Was so exhausted I could not join you gentlemen last night for dinner. Seriously, I was like hands and knees up the steps to go to bed.
We saw the pictures of how many bags of mulch.
There's 65 on the truck, but I only dumped about half of them yesterday. Late in the afternoon. It was nice and hot, but I was in the shade. But I got to tell you, I had to step up into the back of the truck and the knees and all that stuff, and it wasn't a good picture. But I'm going to shift our attention here abruptly to the Olympics. I happened to watch last night the Olympics. I knew they were going on, but somehow sporting events just kind of come and go with me. I don't really pay much attention to it for whatever reason. And so I thought, well, what the hell? I'm going to turn it on. Surely there's something on. And they had a show that led up to when they actually start showing the actual events, which was basically kind of a cornucopia of what's been going on and different odd stories about the Olympics. But anyway, so I'm watching, and I watched synchronized diving. Men's. I don't know if there's women's.
There is, absolutely.
There's women's synchronized diving, or is that like synchronized swimming? You getting that confused with synchronized swimming?
No, I believe they have for the females as well. But
okay, it's possible. So synchronized diving, swimming. I watched the 800 meter freestyle.
Katie Ledecky
She won the 1500 meters. Yeah. And then I watched the gymnastics. And that's the only three I remember. There might have been another one, but the fog was starting to set in. So I'm not 100% sure after that.
Mulch.
I couldn't see.
Mulch.
I couldn't see, exactly. Well, there was more fog than just mulch. Anyway, I'll tell you what dawned on me last night, and it really hit home with me, that at least for me, Sean Riggins, and my history as an athlete. You know, I always kid and tease and joke about being, Jack Champ, who does everything right, and Joe Chump, who does most everything wrong. But in the end, Jack Champ beats Joe Chump by about this much in 100 meters, okay? Maybe a foot. And that's only because Joe Chump throws his head back because it's a much more flourishing finish for the crowd.
Play it to the crowd.
Than lean into the tape. That's the only way Jack Champ can beat Joe Chump. Joe Chump has done everything wrong. He doesn't warm up. He's over there drinking soft drinks. He doesn't even get in the blocks. Yeah, he might even be smoking a cigarette. I have no idea. Jack Champ, he's over there stretching and getting all ready. They run the race. So anyway, as I watch this, it dawned on me just what I am, Joe Chump. And I think most football players, I don't want to take anything away from you, Joe, because I'm curious to get your opinion. But when I think of the amount of work and effort that it goes into making the Olympic team and or some of these sports. Now, not all of the sports, but gymnastics comes to mind, which I don't watch I'm not a big gymnastics guy, but at the same time I have tremendous respect for the work and the dedication that these athletes have to put in. I don't know the numbers for sure, but the training, I think we're looking at least 4 to 8 hours a day for I don't know how long. I didn't really research this, but the stuff that they do, it boggles my imagination. To swim 1,500 meters, that's a mile. To swim a mile like that? And you know a little bit about this, Joe, because you had 2 daughters that were excellent swimmers.
It's true. And
borderline Olympic type.
Borderline, yeah. And going through that, I mean, you're talking about that. I have memories of, taking them to practice.
Exactly.
And
At what, 0-400?
Yeah, great hours of the day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Why do they have to swim at 0-400? I don't know.
But my oldest, I mean, she would swim 9 times a week, practice 9 times a week in the water. Minimum 2 hours at the
minimum 2 hours per swim.
Per practice.
And the exhaustion that they have to go through.
And they do different drills and stuff like that. And she was driven to that. And this with an individual, and see her now to what she was then. I mean, she would log every one of her practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's how most of these athletes that play or do these individual sports like that, they have to do that. Their mind and their focus on that. I mean, they're out there, and unless you're playing doubles at tennis, I mean, you're a single individual. Who are you competing against? I mean, it's a lot different than a team sport. You're competing with yourself and to get better, and that's the way they're taught, to be better than you were yesterday. Beat the best time you've done till that point, and then the next day it's beat that time you just set yesterday. So.
I'm curious. How did your girls come about wanting to be swimmers? Was there any influence from you or your wife or anybody?
Well,
was there a swimmer in the family?
My wife she swam in high school and stuff.
Okay, so there was a swimmer in the family.
There was. She did some. I think she got them into that. For safety reasons, to learn how to swim and stuff. So we did all that stuff when they were younger, 2, 3 years old.
Right.
And the oldest took off with it.
And they loved it.
And she did. The youngest she got kind of,
swept up in the waves.
that semi-truck you got with the wind draft. She was drafted into it. And she wasn't really sold on it, but then she became sold on it as the years went by. And she ended up doing very well herself in the events that she did.
Yeah, see, that's where my curiosity lies. I'll be frank with you guys. I don't, like I tell people, I'm not lazy. I'm just not ambitious. There is a difference, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a cute way of saying I'm lazy. Because I can't imagine, really, putting in that kind of time and that kind of effort. My older brother, he loved sports, and he would practice basketball, at home. We had a basketball, cold weather and all that. He'd be out there shooting baskets and stuff. I'd be in watching Huckleberry Hound. It was like, Occasionally I would go out there. But to me, it boggles my imagination to think how much they, the training and how much work they put in, and most of all, perhaps, how much pain they experience to get to that level. It's, there's a certain bit of masochism in it, for my take. I'm out there for the good time. I'm out there to have fun. And, at that point, when it ceases being fun, which is any time practice is involved, I'm with Iverson on this one. Alan, I hear you. Of course, you were talking about the same
practice?
Thing. Practice?
Not a game.
Well, he was talking to me when he said that. I said, yes, you and me, brother, we got something in common. But then again, you never realize your full potential, which, my point was, I'm thinking to be a running back is really probably, for my take on it, is probably the one thing of all sports out there that you can get a lot of attention. You used to be able to. Nowadays, no. Running backs are, at the end of the food, or down at the bottom of the food chain now. But, you could generate a lot of attention by being a running back or whatever and build your brand up somewhat. But it required very little work when you think about it. Because really what a running back does is, you're reading off everything that's going on, and I don't know how you practice that. I mean, there's nothing when we practice, I got to thinking, well, I guess you got to know where you're going to get the football, when Joe would hand the ball off to you one way or the other, and that kind of stuff. But the actual what you do once you get the ball and you have to perform, It's different every time. I don't know. I mean, I always thought about, well, I guess you could run out and have a bunch of dummies set out there and run out and fake out all the dummies and do all it, which I never bothered doing. You'd have to talk to people like Emmett Smith and Jim Brown, what their take on it was. But, the funky honky was like, less is more. Less is more.
The diesel, and let's take the shortest path from A to B. And if that guy happens to be way going around, let's see if I can go through.
No, just try to go through the edge. You can always, you don't have to go straight line. You can veer just a little bit out of that line.
More the glancing.
Yeah. But yeah, I was totally amazed at like I said, at thinking about how much work that goes into getting to that level of accomplishment, and to see even like those synchronized divers, which how many dives did they make before they got there in the last 4 years?
I mean, thinking about all this, we talked about that, and the girls were very fortunate enough to swim and practice with some of the Olympians, and one that was famous here in this area was Tom Dolan. And now, Tom would practice, and Tom would do 20,000 yards of practice.
He swam 20,000 yards?
20,000 yards of practice. That's short course. And then they switched to long course, which was the 50-meter pool. And then it would be 20,000 meters, which is more. And he had it broken down and doing individual medley set. So he would start out and do butterfly. He would do, I think, 400 there, and then do 400 back, 400 breath, 400 free, and start over again. And that was his practice, just perfecting and building up the strength and the endurance to do the race that he was doing.
He's swimming like somewhere close to 10 miles.
Yeah.
10 miles. In an Ironman competition, you swim a little bit less than 2 miles, right? It's not over 2 miles.
Something like that.
And then you bike for 110 or something, and you run a marathon. The shortest part of a marathon, of the Ironman, is the swimming.
Swim, yeah.
But of course, you can swim through. As we've learned from one of our friends, you can swim through, when they put you in the ocean, you never know, there might be a man-o-war out there or jellyfish or whatever, like
Jaws.
God forbid. Jaws. Of course, it could help your time if you had a great white shark out there. I don't know. If you lived to tell the tale, you'd probably have a pretty good time. But then, so now we roll into probably, I guess, I don't know exactly where to go with this in a way, because Simone Biles, who is, I guess, at this point, most people are crediting her with being the greatest women's gymnast of all time. I always get
I think that's without a doubt based on her medal performances and some of the revolutionary moves that she has invented and created.
Yeah. Well, whether that's here or there is the point that she bowed out after she did, I think, one exercise before the actual event, I think, wasn't it?
She was having a bad warm-up, and then she did one vault.
Oh, that's what
she did one vault
in competition,
and it was supposed to be a 2.5 somersault. It ended up being a 1.5,
right.
And she was that far off. And in her mind, she said, "I don't have it today. I can't do this."
Right. Well, I looked at that and I kind of thought back to my playing days, and I'll remember that second year. Wasn't the second year. When I say it was during the Gibbs regime. But it was actually my penultimate year that I played. And that was when I hurt my back. And there was a time there where I was in so much pain in the morning it would take me. I remember this one specific morning I got up to go to the bathroom. And the bathroom from where I was probably, maybe less than 5 yards away, 4 or 5 yards. But to get up and go to the bathroom, it was in such pain, it was such agony to get there, that actually it crossed my mind. Now this is my narcissism kicking. It crossed my mind that I'm thinking, what am I doing? I'm, playing football. It was during the fall, during the season. Wow. And I was ready to bag it. I really thought about, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna have to quit. I'm gonna have to retire, basically. But obviously I never did, and I played that year, and then I played the next year. But it did. But the part of me that I guess it felt like at that point that the fans would be so disappointed. That's the narcissism kicking in. That you're thinking you can't let the fans down. So I played on. And I at times in my career, went back to my father once upon a time when I thought about getting out of football. It was the same feeling. I felt like I was going to let him down and my mom down, so I kept on. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. So a lot of people have criticized, I think, Simone Biles for her decision that she didn't know this before the games, and she took the spot of somebody that would compete or whatever. But I got to tell you something. What I learned in sports, and it's something that I'll give you a little story out of The Sea Wolf by Jack London. There's an instance in there where a character by the name of Wolf Larson, who has basically taken Humphrey Van Weyden, who was a guy that fell in the San Francisco Bay, and they scoop him up, and instead of returning him, Wolf Larson is pretty much a renegade, but he is a bad dude. I mean, he's not only that, but he's like Lex Luthor. He's a genius. He's a criminal genius on top of having some attitude.
Using his powers for evil?
Yes, so much. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so anyway, he gets shanghaied, and they take him out and all that. So finally, through the end of this, and then there's this woman, Maud, that that they kind of get sweet on it, her and Humphrey, but Wolf is kind of watching all that stuff. Somehow she ends up on the ship. And anyway, they escape from Wolf Larson, but Wolf Larson has this debilitating disease, and it's where he completely, his mind is still sharp, but it's almost like ALS, to where his body is starting to fail him, and he'll have moments where he's just completely immobile. He can't do anything, but his mind is still working just as evilly as it ever had. He's a bad dude. He's got bad thoughts on his mind. So they come to this point where it's actually, he finally starts, he's there and he's going to kill these two protagonists. That's definitely what his mind is set up to do here. But he gets real weak and he can't, all of a sudden he kind of goes into a coma, whatever he does, although he can hear and all that stuff. Now Humphrey Van Weyden was no match for Wolf Larson physically or even intellectually. But so here you have an opportunity. This guy's going to kill you, but because of convention and what you've been taught, he won't kill Wolf Larson. He can't bring himself to kill this helpless man,
who has bad intentions.
Okay, I'll just go around the panel here. Which way would you go on that, Todd? You kill him, right?
He's going
Wolf's
down.
dead. Wolf's dead.
He's going
Joe,
down.
Wolf's dead, right?
Look for that advantage.
Yeah. I guess we weren't. We're not up with the aristocracy.
No.
It's like I'm taking care of number
I know
one.
who
here.
you are.
Well, he doesn't. Somehow it works out, and they get away. And obviously he lives to tell the tale. The point here being is that peer group pressure in my mind drives a lot of people. And this is where it really takes it takes much more courage, I think, to go against peer group pressure and do what you think is best for you. And it all gets down to this. And that's why, on the one hand, there's a lot of people disappointed in Simone Biles for her decision that she made. But you have to appreciate the courage, not only courage it took for all that training, that's more dedication, but the courage it took to invent some of these moves that if you're just a hair off, if your mind isn't there, catastrophe could quickly ensue, whether it be paralysis, and there's plenty of gymnasts have been paralyzed, or death even. You could easily fall, hit your head the wrong way, and end up dying right there on the spot. So I can't. There's no way, and you never know. See, confidence to me is the thing that actually drives all of us almost all the time. Trust and confidence. Trust in ourselves. And she had lost trust in herself. She'd lost confidence. And there's no way that she can be criticized. I saw somebody last night on TV kind of like, she should have known this before she went over there. You never know.
You never know that.
You never know when it's going to hit. And I got the impression, Todd, when we spoke a little bit, you're kind of the other guy. But before you speak, go ahead. Before you speak, I want to say, let's just assume you're getting ready to go to Los Angeles, and you get on the plane and you find out that the pilot ain't feeling it. He's all of a sudden, he's got
a mental
the shakes.
day?
Yeah, he's gone mental on you today. Now, of course, you're upset that he's the pilot, and all of a sudden, he's having this breakdown. But at the end of the day, you're kind of... I'm thinking you're kind of glad he didn't horse it. Or if, let's just say William Tell, you're the other part of the act. William Tell is still the boyer. He's the guy that's still shooting arrows. You're the guy with the apple on your head. William Tell comes up and says, Todd, I'm a little shaky today. I'm not feeling it. Are you saying
too much caffeine?
Are you saying the show must go on, William? No. The show must go on.
I'm going to take your analogy, though, and say, listen, it's different if I know this before I get on the airplane, but if I'm halfway and I'm flying over Kansas City and he decides to have a mental health day, Now you got to hang in there, big guy. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. No, this is a very complex issue with Simone Biles. I will give you that. And taking nothing away from her and her personal decision. But going back to your analogy in that particular year with the back problems that you had, and let's face it, for the best in the world, what you guys were and did at your respective positions years ago, and the training that it took to get there, and the narcissism, right? You were there for the fans. You didn't want the fans down, the community down. We know what a big deal this was. Okay, she's got that same thing with all the adulation. She's the GOAT, right? So versus, did you feel you would let your teammates down? I know you didn't care so much about the coaching staff and that part of it, but your teammates and the guys that were also dependent on you and you depended on them, did that come into play?
I never got the feeling that they depended on me. I was just worried about the fans. I felt like the fans was...
Well, I think that's both.
Are you not into...
But that's a great point. That's a great point.
I mean, it's a good point, but I still think it's on both sides as far as the sport we played. Because it's a team concept.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm different. Maybe I felt that way. If I couldn't perform or I was off, would I step out? But also I would feel bad because then I'm putting them in another jeopardy because somebody's got to come in to replace myself. And then you're shuffling the whole lineup there at different people. So now everything's out of kilter because of one individual.
Exactly. For lack of a nail, the shoe was lost. For lack of a shoe.
Is she the same way because she let down the USA?
Well,
and I think that's the angle.
Well, and this was a team competition that the individual is next week, which still has not been decided if she's going to compete or not. Okay, so there is that. Listen, I get it. If you ain't got it, you ain't got it. And it just happened to show up on the world's biggest stage in her shining glory moment, which would be listen, we got into the Alex Smith situation. I'll take a slight veer there, where Alex wanted to play no matter the cost and what we all thought.
Yeah,
and it was detrimental to the team. Somebody needed to say, hey, enough already. This actually is bad for the team. And
but it was good for the team.
God bless you.
Because of their PR situation.
Well, you did get that.
Yeah, that's what that was all about.
So it's complex. I'm not mad at anybody. There's both sides of the coin, and it gets lost in the politicization of this stuff, though.
But I draw the line where, if we're in the military and we got bullets flying over our head, that's a whole different story. Now you can't do that.
You can't have a mental day.
I can't. Because you can't go mental day. This is entertainment, folks. This is entertainment, and as far as I'm concerned, take it for what it is. Let's not make more out of it than what she had. So what? The USA loses a gold medal. Seriously. Somebody tell me, do the Olympics, is this all about, and I know that's the way the world tries to work. I got to thinking about this, how important it is to the Chinese and all this because on the world stage. But really, if you got half a brain in your head, I would think you would go, it's sports, for crying out. Is this telling me, that the world order is being actually fashioned right now in Tokyo based on what these athletes do out there? I'm going, that's insanity. This is entertainment, folks. Whatever you want to call it. It's sports. You're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to enjoy it. And when you're not enjoying it, you're not having fun, probably you're not doing very well. It's time to get the hell out of it. I mean, I can't see it any other way.
But don't you think, John, this is where, and that's what I'm saying, not politicized, but it becomes a cultural event, and we're supposed to celebrate and worship, and now it's this new dawning, this new day. That's where the debates and the differences of opinions come in, that we're sitting in there going, acting like this is so wonderful and so awesome. She has every right to do it, and that's fine. I'm not mad at the decision, but it's putting it up there because part of being a champion, and wait till we get into his story, is overcoming adversity. Okay, everybody would love to be the greatest in the world.
But she has to overcome adversity to get to where she's at this point.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's a double-edged sword. Surely she struggled before in lack of confidence, lack of everything. And
I still think, and your point and all that, and looking at this, is that society is living through her.
Right. And
they want to win.
And so
Right.
now they're pushing
ultimately-
the narrative of, for all the little girls out there, don't be too hard on yourself, don't do this. And everybody, and this is where people start saying we're starting to get soft culturally and as a nation and other places, because we tend to blow this stuff up because we make these people larger than life.
Correct.
And what it truly means. And,
Exactly.
and that's the part that just frosts me a little bit. It's like, no, let her do her thing. And the same thing with Naomi Osaka and Osaki, what she has done, you know. But don't make it bigger than it actually is, and we start getting into
exactly. And you go back to Charles Barkley. Didn't Charles Barkley say, "Hey,
I am not a role model"?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with him more.
I
never felt of myself
I
that
agree
way,
with
and
that.
I didn't think
Charles
I should.
is not a role model.
And I knew in my heart I shouldn't be considered a role model either. So I didn't ever come out and
We all
agree with
every
that.
now and then fall in that category.
Then and to take this to another level too, though, you have to remember back, to answer, to get back to what you were saying about, where you come out of the lineup, now they have to put somebody else in there, and maybe they're not up to snuff, and all of a sudden it changes the complexion, and it's true. But you also have to remember that this is a team sport made up of individuals, and as an individual, you have to make the decision between, well, if I step out of this, is there some guy behind me, the famous, what's his name, Lou Gehrig story, where
Wally Pipp.
Wally Pipp was, I'm back, ain't feeling it today.
Might have hit it a little hard last night, boys.
Lou goes, okay, I'll play. And that was like, Wally Pipp, who? He's gone. So you get down to this, particularly in professional sports, your job's on the line too. And so you have, you weigh this all out. But I remember early on in my career, of course, maybe that was the point where I realized, and early on in my career, which I didn't know when I had that conversation with my dad, because I felt like after my second year in the league, I went, shit, I can play this game as good as anybody, and anybody's ever played it. So what do I have to prove to myself? At that point, I was done proving to myself. It was a fairly easy way to make a living. And yet I saw the hurt my parents would go through if I'd have walked away after my second year. And I thought, well, what the hell? They do pay pretty good, and I got nothing better to do. So I have to confess, when it comes to love of the game, when the love of money is more like it in my particular situation. But don't hate me for that. I mean, we all got to have something to do, and hopefully you find something that gave you as much free time as that did for me. But because of that, and realizing that you were working in an organization and for a corporation, meaning the NFL, that could care less about you, because there's so many people that want to do this, we can easily find somebody to replace you. You have to be smart, and you have to protect yourself. And I know, though, there was a bunch of those guys on this football team when I first came down here that were really, we're going to go today. I know I got a compound fracture in my left leg, and I've got a dislocated shoulder, but I'll be out there on the field, coach. You can count on me, coach. And I just sit back in awe of guys like that, because I'm thinking, if you know what the game is, and when I say the game, not on the field but off the field, you kind of have to go, really? I don't think so. Because you work for yourself, and you make a contribution. And you have to be the arbiter of what's in it for me, basically. And that's how a team sport really works. Ultimately, the head coach is the one who gets it all, puts it all together, and reaps basically all the rewards if he can convince.
Kind of put all that together, what you talked about. Practice. Somebody gets hurt. They go, all right, let's move it up 15 yards.
He's broken legs over
here.
here.
This guy's down here injured and stuff, and it's you. That's what they care about.
Right, you keep moving. Don't anybody look over here at the compound fracture. Let's practice is 15 yards further.
And about 10 minutes after that, and you're up there practicing, you hear a gunshot. That old movie, they shoot horses, don't they?
Well, what a perfect segue, Riggo, into 1981. Let's go back in time, 1981, and I'm going to set the stage for you here. Joe Gibbs' first year. What number year was this for you?
I'd have been going into after my sabbatical, I was starting my 10th year.
All right, and
so basically I was being reborn in 81, and somebody was just being born.
A newborn Colt over here. Yeah, so I'm going to take you through the draft that year. And then there were 12 rounds of the draft. So your first round pick for the Washington Redskins at number 20, Mark May. guard out of Pittsburgh. Your third-round pick, a guy named Russ Grimm, a guard out of Pittsburgh. Your fourth-round pick, Tom Flick, quarterback.
Who's now a motivational speaker.
Oh, the Flickster.
Ah.
Your fifth-round pick, young buck named Dexter Manley, defensive end out of Okie State. I had to look at this because number 5 in the fifth round also, Gary Sayer, a guard out of...
I remember Gary. He was from Texas, wasn't he?
Cameron?
Yeah, that's Texas.
But I think he was from Texas.
Well,
I think Cameron's down in Texas.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think
sounds
he was.
right. Sixth round, Larry Kubin, linebacker out of Penn State.
Scrappy dude.
I know you guys got a story on that. Nope. Eighth round, Charlie Brown, wide receiver, South Carolina State, CB. Ninth round, Darrell Grant, a guard out of Rice. They listed him as. 10th round, Phil Kessel, quarterback out of Northern Michigan.
I couldn't remember his name. I could see his face, blonde-headed
blonde
kid.
hair guy.
Yeah.
10th round pick, Alan Kennedy, another offensive tackle out of Washington
I got
State.
nothing on him. You might remember him just because he's a tackle.
Tall. He's about my height.
11th round pick, Jerry Hill, wide receiver, North Alabama.
I don't remember him.
I don't either.
Number 12, your boy, 12th round pick, last pick for the Redskins, Clint Didier, tight end out of Portland State. Frogger.
Yep, A.K. Frogger.
And you know who's not drafted? No name I called out there. A guy named Joe Jacoby. Joe Jacoby, undrafted free agent 40 years ago, and you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 linemen drafted, including Mark May was the wasn't he the Outland Trophy?
Yes.
Outland.
Yeah.
So and obviously Russ at the number 3 pick. So you had some made guys coming in with your veterans of.
I didn't say I was the sharpest tool in the shed.
And not only that, though, we must interject at this point in the broadcast that Joe Jacoby, in the coach's mind, and that would be Gibbs, was a defensive tackle.
Correct.
So the first time you meet with him, he's talking about playing defense.
Oh yeah, I didn't say a word. Just sitting there.
That'd have been like if he'd called you Jim.
21-year-old.
If he'd have said, "Jim, I understand that you've been playing defensive tackle down at Louisville and you're really doing good."
Yes, Coach.
You was not going to correct him no matter what he did.
Well, that's true. I didn't. I wasn't going to. So he just rattles on. And I walked out of that room when I was done with him, and remember old Jerry Gabriel?
Yes.
Yeah, I walked over to him because he was assistant GM and signed a 2-year contract. I didn't say I was the smartest, but when they had that $5,000 check waving in front of me and the contract, I thought it's better than nothing right now.
So you find out that what he talked to Beathard, Gibbs talked to Beathard, because your other offensive lineman he had in camp was Bostic, Melvin Jones, Ron Saul, and George Stark.
That was it? What about Freddie Dean? He wasn't but he come next year?
No, Freddie should have been there.
Yeah, okay, so let's see. That would do those. I'm looking off of a starters list here. I got the full roster, but you guys, I think you had 18 linemen in camp.
Yeah, that's what the Gibbs yelled at Buggs.
What's that?
Gibbs didn't go after him, but was very upset with him because coming in. Because remember, they didn't have the limits they have now, how many people could be on the roster. So they would bring 125 because the other guys were the bags. And that's what they brought because we were 6 weeks in camp.
Just like college, basically.
Yeah. So that, and Buggs got yelled at and said, why'd you sign this other lineman, which was me? And Joe told the other Joe and said, well, we'll bring him up for a couple of weeks and then we'll let him go so he can catch on somewhere else.
Talking about you.
Yeah.
Oh, so you don't think they ever had any intentions of you sticking around?
Well, this what Coach Gibbs didn't talk to me afterwards. I mean, a few years gone by. And this is said what their plans was because he was upset at Buggs for bringing in a guy who was not going to have a chance
to make the team
and not get any practice time. Lo and behold, Mayday holds out.
Mayday held out?
Held out for 10 days.
That was a good move. How'd that work out?
And so I got my opportunity to practice up at camp up in Carlisle. So that ended it all. And when he got back.
And you started at guard before that rookie year was over with, didn't you?
Yeah.
Didn't you start out at guard? Huh?
Chicago game.
So where was Grimey then? Were you on the right side?
No, Grimey got hurt. Remember, he had his knee. He had it scoped, and he came back the following week after that.
Okay. So that's
and they put me in guard.
But then when he came back, did you go?
They moved me back. I took my normal position there, standing at the end of the bench.
So who was the left tackle?
Mayday. Mark May. It was after the
your entire rookie year, he was the left tackle?
No. After the next game, after Russ came back, and they made the move and moved me to left tackle halfway through my rookie year.
Now, how does that grab you?
So the undrafted
Outland Trophy winner,
right? The first round show pony,
being replaced by a lowly walk-on.
And even back then, that looks bad on management, right? That looks bad on your talent evaluators, in which don't think that doesn't. Those politics don't come into play.
Oh, clearly.
And because that's embarrassing, that costs people jobs.
How do you think the guy from Seattle felt when after the second day of the draft and didn't get drafted? The phone's ringing off the hook now because every team is trying to sign these free agents. And Washington always said they were the only one that I talked to.
Seattle.
That's all through that.
Right.
And I wanted to go up there, so they called, said they had a plane ticket. We're in the living room with a scout. There was a scout there from Seattle. He had a 3-year contract, wanted me to sign and all that.
Right there on the spot.
Yeah. So I get off the phone. I go back into the room, pack a bag. I said, well, I'll let you know when I get back. I said, Washington called. They got a ticket waiting for me at the airport. I'm leaving now to go catch that. And my brother, we're getting ready to leave. The guy goes, well, no, just stay there. And telling my brother, he goes, I'm leaving anyway. Just catch a ride with me. So he takes me to the airport.
That's a story. The Seattle Seahawks scout sent Joe to a Hall of Fame career.
Right.
Took him to his airplane on his first trip.
The volume of players in 12 rounds of draft and going through these names, and that was a hell of a draft class, though. The success of that, good. Charlie Brown and some of these role players here, the guys that ended up having very successful careers. So Jake, I got to ask you. So the grizzled veteran, you know who he is. Your very first impressions, the first time seeing him, meeting him, and being around El Rigo. What went on in your mind? What was it?
We were already up in camp.
Yeah, you guys went in a week early.
Yeah, the rookies and all that got there early. So he makes his grand entrance. I don't think you made a grand entrance.
Not
then.
really.
There was other years you did.
Yeah, well, that was after the fact. Listen, I was coming back. Hey, I basically had my tail between my legs. I knew what the score was. I.e. that I'd set out of here. I don't think people were overly pleased with me, right? Hey, what the hell you doing?
But it came back to a team.
A Simone Biles move on my
part. Was starting out all anew again because I get the new head coach in. Nobody knew what Joe was going to do.
Exactly.
With Carlisle and all that. And they all was expecting the ball was going to be thrown, and it was quite a bit first 5 weeks of the season.
But when he went, the first time you did see him, and
well,
but I don't know if Joe would have necessarily known who the hell I was.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Well,
we had TVs in Kentucky.
Yeah, but the team hadn't accomplished a whole lot. I don't know, maybe if you watched, Washington on
but you got to remember the time you were playing there, Namath was still with the Jets. And he was on TV a lot because, remember, they won the third Super Bowl.
Right.
So they're going to market his name.
You were America's original team.
So.
Who's that?
The Namath-led New York Jets.
And
that's true. Well, Joe was the original team.
We get the game of the week, and the Jets at that time, because of what they did in the Super Bowl game of the week. And now all of a sudden, I'm in a camp with John Riggins, who played with Joe Namath, and what you have done up to that point. It's pretty impressive from this kid who played in front of 10,000 people at the college he played at.
Yeah, I got that.
So, then all of a sudden, here we are sitting 40 years later talking about all the great memories and stuff we did together. Kind of neat.
Yeah, that was that. Like I said, but for me, when I was coming back after a year off, it's just what Joe was saying about the Air Coryell, or you were saying, that, and that's what it was. And I got to tell you, I was clearly out of my element. First of all, I hadn't had pads on for 18 months or whatever it was, and running around, all of a sudden you put shoulder pads on, a helmet and thigh pads and hip and all these pads, and you're going, that's weird. And then all of a sudden you're taking on a completely new system that was unlike anything you'd ever been a part of, and some new techniques of blocking and stuff like that. And it was like, and I was at the very end of the roster.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you go from basically
Depth chart.
George Allen and Pardee, and let's call them Neanderthal offenses because.
Yeah. Well, my last year in 1979, that loss down in Dallas with 2 minutes to go and all that stuff. I gained over 1,000 yards that year. So then you set out the next year. So that's in December, middle of December. So you don't play until not the following September, but the 2 Septembers later. So that's a nice long break for you. And like I said, and then you got to come back and play in a system that you're completely, it was all this passing and all, just what you said, Joe.
Yeah,
and all
but
this.
I think you went from a one-back to a two-back.
Well, yeah, they kind of went two-back, and then they finally went to the one-back.
Two-back was an age.
But it was a different exactly.
Yeah.
It was a different kind of two-back
system.
Offense. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I went to the end of the depth chart. I was like the 3rd or 4th guy back there.
All right, so,
and I deserved it.
Well, and the fact that we forget, because I vividly remember Joe Gibbs. Nobody knew who he was in Don Coryell's shadow out there because information didn't travel the same, and all you heard about was Eric Coryell. You never heard about this Joe Gibbs guy. He comes in. You guys get off to an 0-5 start. You've got the high-priced draft choices, and your top 2 picks are offensive linemen. When did you know that this guy was good for it and that he had the horsepower because you had been around the block playing with various linemen and various teams and 10 years? When did you know that he was good and this line had something special? Because obviously going to 0-5, and I guess it was Buggs or the Brain Trust came and said, you know what, forget this passing game. We got to run the ball and get behind our horses here.
Well, there's 2 different questions there. The offensive line probably the second year in 1982. Well, actually, maybe towards the last half of that season, for Joe, when they won the second Super Bowl. That's when I knew he was good for it. I figured, okay, it's easy to win a Super Bowl when you got John Riggins, but let's see what you do without John Riggins. And he went, okay, I'll show you what
okay, we get a little Timmy Smith action. See, John? He had Timmy Smith cabbage patching. He goes, I'll show El Rigo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me win one more on top of that one just to get your mind right, okay?
And let's do it a third time with Ernest Biner and any other guy we want to put back there.
Yeah, and a different quarterback just to show you, hey. Oh, okay. I get it now. Hey, I'm almost from Missouri, right? I grew up in Kansas. Missouri is the show me state.
Boy, they don't miss me a lick.
No, not in the least. In fact, I think in a lot of ways they're going, I think they're playing better now than they were before. I was holding them back. I didn't want to believe it, but it was true.
Well, glad to have Joe in town with us here. He's going to be checking in with us throughout the year as we kick off another NFL season coming up here. And guys, I think we'll close it out with the story that this just crossed my desk yesterday, and I find this amazing. We've got a study, 4 findings from a systemic review about beer and exercise. So the 5 o'clock club, this is all going to add up.
Really?
Because they're showing how many Olympic athletes, and especially long-distance runners, first thing they do after a long race, they're drinking beer. They're knocking beer down. So
there's science behind this?
Yeah, but I've got 2 PhDs from Old Dominion University.
An Old Dominion brewery? Do they work for the same outfit?
And it's not Taylor Heineke, and coming out. This wasn't part of his thesis. Patrick Wilson is a PhD, and Jason Wynn, a PhD, Department of Human Movement Sciences at ODU. And they did a systemic review of beer effects on exercise performance, recovery, and adaptation. Here are the 4 key takeaways. Athletes are much more likely than non-athletes to drink beer.
Is that right? Okay, I got that box checked off.
Numerous surveys suggest that athletes from the collegiate level to the elite level are more likely to drink beer than non-athletes. So there's something there's something to there. Now, beer isn't great for hydration after exercise. It does lead to profusely sweating, leading to an average 2% reduction in body mass from water loss. Subjects. So they did one exercise in which they gave them as recovery water, non-alcoholic beer, or 5% alcohol beer, or a sports drink. Subjects given beer retained fewer fluids, urinated more, and had a worsened fluids balance a couple hours after the exercises. But it dropped with time. So Moderate drinking the night before a competition likely won't impair performance. I know you guys can relate to that.
We already knew that.
El Presidente.
Mandatory.
I mean, for self-study.
It was actually his performance enhancing. They didn't know. That's a little asterisk.
Alcohol.
And number 4, regular drinking doesn't seem to hinder athletic gains over many weeks of exercises, especially amongst the more elite athletes. So you guys, once again, ahead of the curve.
Maybe. For whatever reason, I just like to, I like beer. And right now, in fact, yesterday, did all the bull lugging and all that stuff. I went inside and I had 2 ice cold beers. I got to tell you, it's
Nothing
like
better.
It's just.
I second that.
I did. Now, in the old days, I wouldn't have stopped with 2. Obviously, I'd have drank another 10 easy. But I did stop with the 2. But yeah, I mean, and I look back, and that's true what they say. I think, and I always thought, well, beer, it must hydrate you because basically I ran on beer. I mean, I would drink water during the game, obviously, because you didn't have a choice. They didn't have beer on the sideline.
Maybe that's the next iteration.
You were always in the wrong cooler.
Crazy leg Riggins, he's running the wrong way.
That would have been a possibility for sure. Or, hey, come on. The offense has got the ball. Come on, leave. Put that beer down and get out.
Riggo, run to the Budweiser sign over there.
Yeah, it would have been one of those. But, yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I didn't need to drink water because I was full of beer between practice. Like I said, at practice and after practice, as soon as practice was officially over and I was out of the shower and in my street clothes, we were in the shed and we were drinking beer.
We're going to get into
happy ending.
We're going to get into some good 5 o'clock stories throughout this upcoming football season here. Football's back, and the summers. We got one more month, man, guys. Time's flying by. It's marching on, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is, and I say we enjoy it before they put face masks back on you. What do you say? Are you with me, guys? All right, Riggo,